that we are providing today is a free online class to help you become technically good at performing home inspections without attending an expensive class somewhere where you have to take off work, sit in a classroom, and listen to a boring instructor. I'm often called boring, but I'll try to make it quick and easy for you. So this is going to be about an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm going to take you through a home inspection that I did, and it was in Pennsylvania. So you have to keep that in mind. The climate zone in which you work is often very important, sometimes vitally important to understand when you're performing an inspection. When you start looking at the building envelope or the insulation or vapor retarders or crawl spaces and ventilation of the roof, those things, the climate zone may play an important role. So I'll just tell you this was a cold climate. Before we start with the class, there are 3 URLs I want you to know about. NACHI TV, NACHI.TV. That's our, it's kind of like our Netflix for home inspectors, right? But it's free. You don't have to pay for it. And it's open to everyone. And we have over 500 hours of online training videos that you could watch. And let me just take you there. Let's see if I can take you there. I want to show you what I like on NACHI TV. What I like on NACHI TV is the tabs on the top. And the one called marketing, you click that. And we had a class called, can you see that? Let me zoom in. Top 25 marketing tips and products and services for home inspectors. That's the top left video. And you can play that video. It's about less than an hour long and really understand all of the things, the top 25 things that I think you should know about, every home inspector or InterNACHI member should know about. So that's what I wanted to share with you. That's on NACHI TV. The other URL is nachi.org/everything. If you can't find what you're looking for, you can always email staff. We're on our contact page. Email me. That's my email address. Or go to nachi.org/everything and check that out. We try to put all the important things, not everything, but almost everything on that page. And then while we're performing this inspection in the next hour, I'll be referring to the standards of practice. The standards of practice for performing a home inspection is at that URL, nachi.org/SOP. All right, so let's take one more logistics. Again, I can't hear you. I cannot see you. You should be able to hear me, and you should be able to see me. And if you wanted to ask questions, this is a live class being recorded. There's a question box or a comment box, a chat box, bottom right corner, typically on your screen. You just type in that and I'll be able to answer your questions. I'll try to get to every question during the class. If I don't make it, you can email me afterwards. If you have to leave, that's fine. I'm going to send you a link to the video recording. We're recording it right now. My job as a home inspector, I feel, is to find the problems and report those problems that I observe to my client in my inspection report. And I've always been asked, well, how do you define what a problem is? So I wrote 4 definitions for you. And here they are: material defects, major defects, minor defects, and cosmetic defects. And you can get the definitions at that URL, nachi.org/report review. On that page, you'll see information about how we review inspection reports for our members as they're being certified. It's one of the requirements. But there's a checklist that you can download. And inside that checklist, that download, are the definitions and some other information that you want to check out. The material defect is actually written in the standards of practice. That is the worst thing you can come across, right? It's actually the most funnest thing you can come across as a home inspector. That's a defect that's so serious, it's going to hurt someone. Or it's going to have an adverse impact on the value of the home. A great example would be a deck with terrible ledger flashing, and you see that this deck is starting to pull off, and you think that the deck collapse is imminent. That's what I use. That means it shall happen. This deck is going to fall. Yeah, that would be an example of a material defect. It's going to hurt someone. And I've been on decks where I actually had to get warning tape and wrap it, make sure no one steps on that deck. And I had to wrap the slider door handle, to make sure no one opens up the slider door and goes on that deck. Those are actually a lot of fun to find. Major defect is something that is wrong that needs to be fixed by a professional. A minor defect is something that's wrong that could be fixed by a professional or the homeowner. Let's say a thermostat. Thermostat's kind of difficult. No one's going to get hurt, low voltage wiring, but every homeowner should know what the thermostat is, and if they wanted to upgrade it to from a manual thermostat to a nice programmable one, they should be able to do that. That's a minor improvement, maybe a minor defect that you can find. And then a cosmetic defect is who cares about it, but you might put it in a report. A flaw, a blemish, has no real impact. But if I'm walking around and I'm in the kitchen and my client sees a crack in the tile, I would consider that a cosmetic defect. Some may want it in the report as with more language and should be replaced. But if I knock on the tile and I hear that means it's lost its adhesion to the subflooring. And so maybe I would put it in because it's loose. But if it's a crack or a spot or a stain or even a hole in the drywall, all those things are really cosmetic. I'm not there to report upon cosmetic problems. I'm really going for the top three: material, major, and minor. Let's inspect this house. What I do as an inspector is I get an overview of the entire structure, the building, the house, the condo unit that I'm inspecting. I step back and see what's going on from the big picture, right? And then I move in closer and closer. Here I can see that it's a townhouse, it's attached. I've got an end unit, so I'm going to have more windows than a townhouse with that's inside, right, with two shared walls. And that roof is accessible to a high ladder. Maybe you don't carry a ladder, but I do. According to the standards of practice, remember we're referring to the standards at NACHI.org SOP, you're not required to walk upon any roof surface, so don't worry about it. If you don't want to get up on the roof, if you think it's unsafe, don't. If you're not trained, don't do it. If you don't want to carry a tall ladder, you're not required to. You're not required to walk upon any roof surface, even if it's flat and only 8 feet above the ground, right? But you are required to inspect it. So it's a little bit of a, it's a challenge, right? What if you can't see it? What if you can't really, you see something, but you really can't, maybe binoculars? So what I recommend is inspecting the roof while standing on the ground. And you can do that with a scope or a spectroscope. And InterNACHI's e-commerce partner, Inspector Outlet, sells one of those. It's like a 35-foot pole. You stick a Wi-Fi camera on a Bluetooth camera on the top and your device on the bottom, and you can zoom in and record video and take pictures, and it's downloaded on your mobile device. And we'll talk about how to write software, but I'm a big fan of writing software with your mobile device. So it's all there, right? So I didn't do that though. That was not my way. I built homes before I became a home inspector. I was trained on installing roofs and ripping them off. So I was very comfortable being on the roof. I was safe at it too. So I carried tall ladders to every inspection on my work vehicle, right? I call it a work vehicle, not your Prius, or don't mention it by name. In my Honda or something, it's a work vehicle. That was my brand. I called it a work. It was a huge, big Econoline van with a ladder rack, and I had 28-foot fiberglass ladder, I had a 40-foot aluminum ladder, 12-foot aluminum ladder for the small things, a step ladder, and crawl gear. So I went everywhere. And because I went everywhere, I wanted to tell everybody that I went everywhere, from the crawl space all the way up on the roof. And I did that through my marketing. My brand is who I am. I go everywhere. I carry tall ladders. I'll get up on the roof. And my marketing is the ways that I communicate that message. So I had pictures in my inspection report of me like that on the roof. That's a picture from the roof. And when I got up on a roof, I'm there with my digital camera. I would take a picture far away of every field, of every plane, and then I would start to get up close. Every time I went up, I was exceeding the standards of practice, right? And I exceeded the standards of practice for every client. I didn't just pick one person, go up on the roof just for them. So there's a bit of a legal thing you may want to consider. And we have Mark Cohen, InterNACHI's legal counsel, write an article about exceeding the standards of practice. And if you want to read that article, it'd be really good. You could email me. It'd be a good read. And as you can see, we have defects, right? They're not material defects. There are a couple shingles that are in poor shape, but you need a professional. So those are major defects. So I'm looking for defects, and I want to make sure that my client understands the degree to which the defect is, right? Material is the worst. Major needs a professional. Minor needs a professional, or maybe you could do it. Cosmetic is like a blemish. These are major defects. And the shingles weren't even installed correctly. So as you can see, in that shingle, one of those fasteners was installed. Well, they're not spaced appropriately. That's not where you install a fastener. You don't install fasteners 4 inches apart on any shingle, not even wind driven. And that fastener is installed in the adhesive strip. So that's a poor location of a fastener in a 3-tab asphalt shingle. That's a technical observation, right? And you gather that knowledge through InterNACHI's online courses. Learn at your own pace. You take the courses, you learn how to inspect a roof, and then when you're on a roof or using a spectroscope and you see a defect, you can actually draw upon the knowledge that you have and communicate those defects in your inspection report. I like to communicate with pictures and video more than words. If you take a look at my inspection reports, you can download samples of them. My reports have a ton of pictures because a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So poor condition. If you want to learn how to inspect a roof, grab your computer, turn it on, and type in that URL. It's nachi.org/go/roof. And there you'll find a ton of resources about learning how to inspect a roof. I like the advanced course on inspecting roofs. And then, according to the SOP, I'm required to inspect all penetrations. Anything that penetrates the field or the planes of the roof covering. Oh, by the way, I'm not inspecting the roof system. I'm inspecting only the roof covering. The roof system includes fasteners and underlayment, and you could argue the deck underneath. I'm not inspecting the entire system. I'm only inspecting things that I see, and I can't see those other things, but I can see the roof covering. So in my inspection reports, you want to use roof covering. You're inspecting the roof covering, not the roof system. Don't comment on the roof system. Don't say that the roof system is good, because you can't even see most of it. All you can report on is what you see. So there's the penetrations. That flashing is not installed properly. So if you take a look at it, the left side of the flashing jack is actually open to water penetration. There's a hole 2.5, 3 inches from that left edge of that flashing, the metal flashing. Oh, I wonder if I have a pen. I've practiced this before, but usually I'm not very good at it. There it is. Cool. So right there is where I'm talking about. So there should be an asphalt shingle tab lying over that area, right? So it's not a really great position from the roofer of that flashing. The standing seam has a little bit of corrosion. I'm not worried about it. The other type of flashing that you need to look at is, what did we do? Flashing around the vent pipes, valley flashing, and now step flashing. And step flashing is listed in the standards of practice, and you're required to inspect for it. I see step flashing, but I also see white silicone slobbered all over the step flashing. And when I see that, poor workmanship, something sloppy, I put a smile on my face. I know I've got a problem, and I want to figure it out as much as I can. I'm not required to diagnose every problem that I see, but I'm going to try to figure out what's going on, because this doesn't look right. So you can see the metal flashing there in between the shingle tabs, but I don't know why. If you do metal flashing properly, you don't need sealant at all. So you're probably saying, well, what about masonry, right? Well, you're supposed to groove in, you're supposed to cut a groove into the brick masonry fireplace and bend that flashing in there and shove it in there. Then you can put a little tab of silicone if you wanted to. But silicone is a temporary Band-Aid. And those things fall off all the time, right? So does silicone. There's the chimney stack. You're required to inspect a chimney stack. We have a course on inspecting fireplaces and chimney stacks. I know that that's a fireplace chimney stack. Why? Can anybody take a guess on why I think that's a fireplace chimney stack and not a masonry chimney stack from a fuel burning appliance or fuel burning furnace or boiler? Okay. Anybody guessing? No. Shelly, it's over 3 feet high? No. Ceramic vent? Yeah, you're close. Douglas. So the shape, it's actually the shape of the interior flue liner. The terracotta flue liner is rectangular. And that kind of gives me a pretty good guess that this is for a fireplace chimney stack. Just the shape of it. If you see a rectangular flue liner on a chimney stack, could be fireplace. This is cold climate, so that makes sense. And if it's circular or square, that could be likely a flue liner for a fuel burning appliance, a furnace, a heating system. So just one of those tricks. One of those tricks is in the course as well. The flashing is okay. I'm not happy again with the white silicone. Doesn't even look very good. The wash or the top cap on top of the chimney should be sloped. If it's metal, it should be sloped and with a drip edge to kick it away. There's some cracking of the masonry at the top wash, the crown, and there's also cracking at the mortar joints. I'm assuming this isn't brick because the cracks are about 9 inches, 8 inches separated. So this is probably a concrete block chimney stack, and there's cracks at the mortar joints, and there's efflorescence at each crack. There's also chunks of masonry popping out. So what happens is that this masonry is absorbing moisture through the cracks or through the material itself, and then through pressure, water pressure, it's cracking the masonry on the outer surface, and or because of the cold climate, it could be freezing and cracking. Either way, it's a clear indication of water penetration into the material, efflorescence or salt deposits being left behind and causing structural damage. So this is a major defect. Interior flue liner, you're not required, according to the standards of practice, to inspect any interior flue liner. But while I'm there, I can just reach up, grab my digital camera, and snap a shot. And often, I find a hole right on the side of the interior flue. Or maybe there's a separation or a vertical crack or a blockage. This one's fairly clean. I don't even see any soot or creosote. And I try to zoom down to look at the damper or the throat of the fireplace. Now I'm coming down from the main roof, and I'm looking at secondary roofs, maybe a shed roof or a porch roof. The downspout here is diverting water sideways along the flashing and possibly underneath the shingles. I'm not happy about that. Ideally, the top gutter is attached to a vertical downspout coming down to the lower secondary level of roof, and it's not dumping a lot of water on top of the shingles like it is here. It would be directed into the secondary gutter, the lower gutter. So what I did was I took a bunch of pictures of the roof. So of the roof, usually about 50 pictures, just of the roof. If there's a lot of defects, a lot more pictures, right? But for this roof, we had some major problems, right? Some shingles are cracking in the chimney stack, in the flashing. And so I'm taking about 50 pictures. I'll put maybe a dozen or so of them in the inspection report. I won't be able to put them all in. I'll also do video. I used to carry 2 cameras. Now I have a software that I use my iPhone with. It works on my iPhone, and it takes obviously pictures and video. And I would take video of the roof inspection because I don't want anybody coming up on the roof, but I wanted to communicate really well my findings. So I would take video, and here's video of the roof. There's the chimney stack. The masonry chimney stack needs some repair at the mortar joints. The stucco exterior, cement stucco, is cracking along all of the mortar joints. That could allow water penetration. The asphalt shingles need to be repaired in several areas where they are actually missing. And on and on. Looks like there's some water damage at the right there. The exterior. There's a hole in the siding up there. So I took videos of my inspection as well. And at the end of the inspection, about 2.5 hours later, I'd be in the kitchen. That's where I wind things up. That's where I like to get paid and summarize everything and my findings. And what I did was I turned my computer around and I played those videos for my client, particularly when their agent was right behind them. And I would just play them and let them view the videos. And after a few seconds, they realize that that's their roof. They're not watching any video. It's their video of their roof that they didn't get to see because I don't take anybody up on the roof. And that was part of my brand. So I did a ton of pictures. I gave all of my pictures to my clients, and I did video, and I provided all those videos to my clients as well. Used to burn them to a DVD back then, and then USB. Now it's all in the cloud with your mobile software. So you have to think about that as well. I think, well, digital pictures were kind of new about 15 years ago. Well, I think video is the same way. In about 10 years from now, I would say, people are going to expect a lot more video. In fact, I love the idea of a video-based inspection report. And if you've been with me during an inspection or in other classes on software, you can see that as well. It's so easy to snap pictures. It's just as easy to do video. So I'm done with the roof, right? I'm using my mobile device. I've entered my comments just by clicking and tapping the sentences that I like. And maybe there's some custom things I need to write in, like where the missing shingles are or how many. And then I'm done with my video as well. And as I write my inspection reports and take pictures, those pictures and video end up right where I was in my software. So my software, if I was writing about the flashing, the step flashing, right, being gooped with silicone, in my software, I would take pictures as well. And then I'm done with that inspection report. I can print it out later. I could email it. I can put it in the cloud. I can PDF it. But I'm done with that inspection. Before I step on my ladder to get down from the roof, I'm done inspecting, taking pictures, taking video of the roof, and writing my inspection report for that system. And I'm on to the next system, which is exterior. I do the same thing every inspection. I start with the roof. Why? Because it's the most difficult, and it's the one area that I can go and I don't need anybody's permission to be there, right? I get kind of permission to come a little bit early, about 15 minutes early. I get there early, get my big ladder out, go up on the roof, do the inspection. Ideally, my client would come a little bit later on time. I'm early, and they would pull up into the driveway and I'd wave to them from the roof. And I can just imagine when that happened, like they feel confident that they hired the right person, right? Because there's their inspector early, waving from the roof, inspecting the roof already. I come down and I shake their hand, big smile, introduce myself, pass out a bunch of business cards. I inform them of what's going on. We're doing a home inspection. It's going to take a couple hours. Here's how I do it. I do the roof first. I inform them of the defects that I find. And then I invite them to walk with me throughout the entire inspection. Hardly anyone ever takes me up on that invite. I ask them to go around the exterior once with me, and we do. Right there, we go around the exterior, and I go counterclockwise on every home. I don't know why, it just started that way. So actually every room, I go counterclockwise. You move through your systems in a certain path every time, and you don't get off that path, right? Because you get lost. and then you start to lose track of time. What you want to do is be consistent with your process. It starts with the standards of practice. That's your foundation. And then you develop a process, an inspection process. How do you perform an inspection according to the standards of practice? And you perform that process the same way, in the same pattern, every time, right? As you do any inspection on every home. It's the same thing. So I'm doing the exterior. It's a quick run through of the exterior with my client and maybe their agent. And then I scooch them inside and I tell them, I'll see you in a little bit. I'm going to go around one more time and I'll see you inside. And the next thing we're going to do is the heating system, because that's really important. So wait for me. I go around myself and I really do the exterior inspection. And then I go in, I see if I can find my client. Usually they're wandering about, and I do the heating system, because that's the third most important system. Roof, exterior, and then heating, cooling, hot water source, plumbing, water coming in, drain going out, electrical system, foundation. Those are the big systems that I'm going to get to in about an hour and a half. The rest of it is easy. Attic, interior, bathrooms, windows, and a kitchen, and I'm done, right? And I do one inspection at 8 o'clock and another inspection at 12. That's a 4-hour window. So I'm going to do about 3 hours of inspecting and drive to my next inspection at noon. Eat along the way. Do a couple hours of inspecting, drive home, and I'll be home around 4 or 5 o'clock. It's a long day for a home inspector, starting at 7 to get the 8 o'clock inspection early, and I come home about 5. But the good thing is, because I'm using mobile devices while I inspect, I don't have to write the report at night. Okay? So there's some tips. That's how I perform an inspection. That's how I performed this inspection. So now I'm going around the exterior, and I'm looking for grading, because I want everything sloped away from the house. If it's not, I often find water intrusion issues that are related to the grading, because the water is not sloped away from the house. There's an issue where the siding, wood siding, is in contact with dirt. There has to be at least 6 inches. I like 6, maybe 8 inches of clearance. Someone put that in the report. I follow the downspouts. Remember how I followed the downspout from the upper gutter to the lower secondary level gutter? Well, here's the downspout at ground level, and it's not diverting water away from the house. During a typical rainstorm in Pennsylvania, hundreds of gallons of water will be dumped right next to that foundation right there. So now I'm smiling, because I can't wait to get into the basement. I'm keeping in mind all the things that I've found during my inspection. Remember, roofing shingles, totally blown off the roof. I'm going to look for roof leaks, right? And now I'm going to look for water penetration, intrusion problems in the basement. And when you're looking closely, remember far back? Then I move in closer, and then I move in really close, up to the point where I'm touching things. And when you do that, you get to look at details like that. That is a pipe, about a 1.5-inch diameter pipe, going into the downspout, underground drainage pipes. That's probably a sump pump discharge, I'm thinking, or maybe a condensate discharge. Something is discharging. So I'm going to keep that in mind as well. And I'm looking at the exterior. Looks okay. For a 15, 20-year-old home, not bad. The siding looks pretty good. There are areas of wood rot, though, on windows that I can see. And I'll put that in the report. Like right there. Cosmetic, peeling paint. Wood rot is not cosmetic. And there's some wood rot, major wood rot on that window. I can't reach it from the ground, so I'm going to keep in mind to open that window up and see if I can grab something. There are woodpeckers too. And this woodpecker is following a carpenter bee. Carpenter bees drill a nice 1/2-inch diameter hole into the wood. They make a 90-degree turn. They drill in, go about 8 inches, 12 inches, and put their babies in there. And then a woodpecker follows. And the woodpecker follows those carpenter bees, and they do damage to the siding. How do I know that? Why do I want to know about carpenter bees and birds? About the birds and the bees? It's because those two things can damage wood, right? So anything that damages wood, I want to know about. And we have that kind of information available to you in an online course called the Wood Destroying Organism inspection course, and it's free and online to members. So you can learn about things that damage wood. It isn't just water or a carpenter's footfall. It's anything that damages wood. So I'm going to learn about water, mold, bees, termites, ants, things like that. And I'm going to look for those things as well. So a lot of people say, well, a home inspection report does not include wood-destroying organisms. Oh, mine does. And that's the value that you get when you hire me. I'm going to beat you in the market if you can't inspect the roof as closely as I can. If you don't carry ladders, that's okay. You should carry a spectroscope. If you don't do that and you carry binoculars, I'm going to beat you in the market. So if there's a choice between two inspectors and we're equally trained and certified, same kind of experience, but I'm doing something that you don't, I'm going to stand out just a little bit better than you, right, in the market. So if I'm trained in anything that destroys wood, because I took InterNACHI's courses, and I add that as value to my inspection service, I'm going to stand out a little bit more, right? And we'll talk more about that. So right here is the actual sill plate, the structural load-bearing component called a sill plate, right on top of the foundation. And the wood frame walls are standing out. The whole house is standing on this structure here, the sill, and it's exposed to the weather. They didn't even cover it. So that is, it's not destroyed, thankfully. That would be a material defect, but it's exposed to the weather. So it has a potential, if left go, to absorb moisture and deteriorate. So I'm going to call that as a major defect. Professional is needed. On the exterior, I'm required by the standards of practice to inspect the steps, stoops, stairs, decks, ramps, sidewalks, driveways. And when I do that, I basically, again, I go the three approach, right? The far away, I'm far away, I want to see the big picture. And then I get a little bit closer, and then I get really up close to the system. And I look at the components. And here is a door with a landing. Far away, it looks good. Middle, I see some cracks, and up close, I see potential areas. I see open areas for water intrusion. The storm door doesn't close. That's how up close I get, right? I'm almost touching everything. If my hand is in half of the pictures, because that's where I'm at. Far back, mid, and then really up close, and I'm taking a picture of anything that I inspect up close. Anything. So you can see I snap at just about everything. And those pictures with my hand in it usually is an indication for me to remember this is a defect. Here's one. There's the dryer exhaust with a ton of lint, and it's not even closing. So often a bird will come and go right into the dryer vent and build a nest right in there. Every exterior water faucet, especially in a cold climate, should be frost-free so that they don't freeze and burst. Every receptacle outside should be GFCI protected. And speaking of electrical, I'm doing the exterior, right? But a house is a system of interdependent parts. One part affects a lot of others. And while I'm inspecting the exterior, here's another system that comes up. So no big deal because I use mobile software. So I simply, with a flick of the finger, I go from exterior to electrical. Now I'm in the electrical system, and I'm organizing my software according to my inspection process. So I know typically on every home inspection, I'm outside doing the exterior inspection, I flip to the electrical system, and the first thing I want to comment about is the meter, right? And or the main service line coming in. So the service entrance cable is an underground conduit, and it pulled on the meter as the house ground, the ground surrounding the house settled. And it pulled on that underground line and pulled the meter right off the house. This is a material defect. Anything like this, I touched this meter because I knew it was okay. But I'm not going to say, yeah, it's all okay. I'm going to label it as a material defect because now we need to shut off all of the power. I reattach the meter box, and you need an electrician, maybe two, to do this. And it's highly dangerous. This is not a homeowner thing. And anything with the electrical system, really, I don't pull any punches. I want to make sure this house is safe. So this is a big defect. And there's a line going into the meter, the main panel in the basement, 200 amps. There's an underground conduit, which settled. We got phone and cable. Some sealant is needed. I see a grounding wire, grounding rod, and I'm done with that. So that was probably a 2-minute inspection of the exterior electrical system, right? A minute maybe. It's very easy. I'm paying attention also to my time while I'm performing an inspection, and that should only take a few minutes. Then I'm back to the exterior, and one of the major systems, one of the biggest things attached to a house is this, the deck. And often it's not attached well. And if it's not, it's really hazardous. So it's important to inspect the deck well. We actually have a bunch of courses on how to inspect the deck. The way I inspect it is from bottom up. I start from the bottom. Works perfect. I'm outside anyways, so let's poke with my screwdriver that I pull out of my tool pouch the very bottom of every load-bearing component of the deck system to look for attachment and damage. These are not attached and they're damaged. They're buried underground too. Now I'm looking for attachment to the house, and it's in poor condition as well. You can't install a ledger board with nails. Why? Because they withdraw. They pull out. You can see a deck just pulling straight out. What you need is lag screws. It's okay. Lag bolts. It's a lot better. Or designed attachment systems. You go to Home Depot and you take a look. Ask for the deck area, and you can see you've got joist hangers, fasteners, lag screws, lag bolts, but then there's the best, which is a various amounts of different kinds of attachment devices to attach every joist to every ledger to every house structure. And that's the way I would build a house. Here, we have a bunch of nails that can easily withdraw. A lot of them are rusting, a couple lag screws, small diameter heads. I bet they're not even penetrating anything of value. And there's a ledger strip. I'm not a fan of ledger strips. It's hard to attach a floor joist to a ledger strip. It's all about gravity, but decks tend to have a vector force going away from the house, not always down straight. So ledger strips are not my fan. But there is actually a minimum that a ledger strip needs to be, and it's violating that minimum right there. So let me use my tool. I gotta practice my pen. So right here, you need at least 1.5 inches of bearing. The floor joist end needs to bear about 1.5 inches on top of something. And so there's a ledger strip there, and it's barely attaching. It's barely resting on that ledger strip. So that's an indication of the condition of the entire system. So we're at the material defect area here. Let's see. So we have lots of illustrations that you can use to help communicate to your clients through your report what a ledger strip is, for example. And we have over, I think it's 5,000 illustrations available to every InterNACHI member to include in your inspection report. And this is about ledger strips. So I'm looking, no one's asking questions. You guys okay? All right, if you have a question or you want me to shut up and say something else, feel free, okay? So if you have a question, Phil, is there a specific report writing software you would recommend? Yep, all of the software that is available on our e-commerce partner site called inspectoroutlet.com, inspectoroutlet.com. Left-hand navigation menu, just click software. I recommend all those. I personally have Home Inspector Pro on my iPhone because it's a mobile device, and I recommend that everybody inspect with a mobile device, mobile software. And Home Inspector Pro works on any device. Another really good one is Home Gauge, and they work on PC devices and laptops and computers. So those two softwares I love. Can we download these examples to our iPad or iPhone? Download examples, the software? Yeah, so every good software manufacturer has free trial downloads. And it's usually like 3 months, and you can play around with it and see how it compares to other things. So that's the first step I would do. Go to inspectoroutlet.com, download a free trial of one of the software and the things that are there for you. For this deck, would you recommend none to walk on until this is? Yeah. So this was a deck that I recommended because we'll get to it if I ever get there. There's water intrusion through the deck flashing that's visible from the basement. So I know water is actually traveling from the siding to the deck through the house structure and into the basement. Where there's a water path through wood, there typically is wood rot. I call this an imminent deck collapse caused by poor installation and workmanship, especially at the deck ledger attachment and flashing. And I recommended no one stand on the deck. And that doesn't go over very well with real estate agents, as you may imagine. And I got to the point in my profession that I really didn't care. Right in the beginning, you tend to be pressured to say things in different ways and write it soft. That's fully understandable. And you have to negotiate that and stick to your guns as you become better at operating your business and becoming a veteran inspector and leading other inspectors. But you get to the point where you really don't care what anyone says, except for your client. And you're always performing your inspection to the benefit of your client. And so you don't pull any punches. So I really felt that this deck was not safe for anyone. I wouldn't let my family step on it, so I'm not letting anyone else step on it either. And you can see that there's a lot of wood rot. Good. I'm being observed today by James. James is in our room. He's watching me. I'm very nervous. So you can see that there's been water going behind the deck ledger right here. So I'm still on the exterior, right? And now I'm underneath the deck. Haven't even gotten up on the deck. And that's like wood rot. It's not wood rot. It's there's a term I used to use. It'll hit me. But it's like junk. It's like wood junk that comes from debris being carried by water behind like a flashing or a siding or a ledger board. It's like a dark, like moldy kind of stuff. And it's an indication that there's been years of water going in areas where it really shouldn't be. And that's a really great indication. So if you inspect with your hands, you tend to find things that other inspectors might pass over because they're just going too fast, right? So if you think, inspect with your hands all the time. I want to touch just about everything. That's why I wear gloves. You can see all my gloves wear out in a month, right, at the fingers, because I'm touching everything. I'm sliding my hand on everything. So that's another tip that I would do. Inspect with your hands and then take a picture of it. If your hand isn't in the picture, you won't understand the scale. Your clients just won't understand what's going on. So your hand in the picture is a really good way of communicating. A lot more problems with the deck. I did a deck flashing video. It's about 15 minutes. And as you can see, I colored every component of a proper deck flashing. And it's all about lapping in the right direction to divert water away. You know, they need that water kicked out. So there's a really great video I would recommend. It's a short one too. On to the next system. But I'm inspecting the exterior, but here comes, looks like an air conditioner unit. It's okay. I'm using a mobile device. I flick over. I don't have to put this all together 8 hours from now. I'm doing it right now. I'm taking pictures and writing my comments. And this looks like a compressor unit, right? So I can see the manufacturer. Its manufacturing plate is there, the model number, the manufacturing number, and the serial number. Serial numbers are used to date it. Model numbers are used to size it. And I like these folks. I've been referring to them. I don't even know them. Just came across it. It's buildingcenter.org. And I went there recently, and they're updating their entire website, so give them a chance to update everything. But a fantastic resource. There are other resources too, like books, online books, and actual printed books that list every hot water tank source and every furnace and air conditioner by the model number and or serial number, and they give the date of manufacturing. So if you're really into figuring out how old the system is, go to buildingcenter.org. You look for Amana, right? Because that's the manufacturer's name. And then you type in the serial number and you get the actual date that that unit was manufactured, down to the week, month, year, week, year, month, week. So that is far exceeding the standards of practice, but I often did it for my clients who actually requested it. So if you wanted to really know, if you had a problem with, if you had some question about the actual age of the system, I tried to find that out for you. But usually I told my clients within my contract and in my inspection reports that I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing the year. So there's the refrigerant line going from the compressor to the air handler on the inside. Electrical shutoff switch is in sight. That's good. And the fins of the coil is good. And that's it. I'm done. I'm done with that. That was a couple minutes of inspecting. Now I'm inside and I'm doing the heating system. My client is ideally with me. If they're not, I'll circle them back and take them through. I want them to know how the furnace works. And it turns out this is a furnace. It's not an air conditioner. So it's a heat pump. Oh, I knew that because of that. Does anybody know what that is? And why? What is the clear indication that is a heat pump? While you're answering, Rob asks, can you comment on using a drone to inspect the roof? Yeah, no, don't do it. Drones are for fun. There's just so much liability. I don't recommend it. So the reason is, well, I live in Colorado, and around here, you can get a gust of wind of 30 miles an hour without you knowing it. I mean, totally unexpected. And that'll take your drone into someone else's house, someone's house, or into a tree. And so that just doesn't work where I live. I was in Florida flying drones too, and it doesn't work down there either. Nice calm breeze of 5-7 miles an hour is too much for me to handle with the drone. It has to be absolutely perfect weather. It can't be raining either, right? And cold weather affects the batteries as well. So these things are, it's really just for fun. And so the FAA also regulates a drone. If you start flying drones around, near an airport especially, watch out if you're not certified and registered with the federal government. There's just too much going on. I can't see how you could beat me with a drone in the market and during an inspection. Like, I'll find more problems than you because I'm going to get up on the roof. And if I can't walk on the roof, I'm going to get up to the gutter edge with my ladder, right? Or I'm going to use an inspectoscope. And I have no risk of damaging someone else's property with a drone, with those blades. So I would say drones are for fun, and you can do a better job consistently in any condition just by using your feet and your hands and your cameras. What about Inspect It? I've heard of that software. I haven't heard anything terrible, so I don't know much about software, really. I just know what I know, which is Home Inspector Pro and Home Gauge. Pretty good stuff. Tom says, I was taught to have TGE attachment off from the house so water couldn't drain past it. I'm not sure what you're asking for. So I'm not sure, Tom, what you're saying, but you can ask again. But the deck attachment to the house is really important for two reasons. In two ways. It has to be fastened and attached well, but it also has to be flashed. If either of those are in poor condition, if there's a major deficiency in either of those, I'm killing the whole deck system, right? So it could have beautiful flashing, but nails, right? And can't use nails at the ledger board. That's an example. The reversing valve, right? So everyone's getting it. Douglas, Beth, Shelley. So the two arrows going in opposite direction shows that this component allows the liquid line to go in either direction, and that means heat pump. So let's see, going back to where we were, there's the heat pump unit there. Refrigerant line coming in, a condensate line at the bottom, and it looks like there's the electric coil, there's an electric supply line and the coil and the heating system. Sometimes I'll pull out my my 6-in-1 screwdriver set, pull out the Phillips, and take the screws out. And just, I love seeing that coil if I can. So I'll pull the cover off and look inside to see if I can see the coil and maybe take a picture of it. I also like to see the evaporator coil tray. Sometimes those trays are just filled with gunk and corroding away. The air filter is low efficiency, poor quality, washable, and dirty. There's the manufacturing plate. There's the refrigerant lines there, the electric lines there, condensate, tube discharge from the sump pump, and then the basement is conditioned somewhat. It wasn't designed originally for that. Someone just added some ductwork and some ceiling tiles in the basement and some finished stuff. So that's the heat pump system in about 10 minutes. Some areas, like Texas, require you to measure the actual delta T, the temperature of the air coming into the unit and the temperature coming out. And it needs to drop or be different. It needs to heat up or cool off. Now I'm into the main water coming in. I think of water coming in, water supply, either a private well or public line. This is public water. And the shutoff valve and water meter and distribution pipes going to the hot water source. And I'm also thinking about my next system is the drainage going out, the sewer waste drain stuff going out. Water coming in, water coming out. And there's the water meter, the bonding wire. There isn't a jumper cable. There's supposed to be like a grounding wire, a jumper wire. I'm jumping, clamped on either side of the water meter. And while I'm there, I see water penetration, obviously. Those are CMUs, concrete masonry units, concrete blocks. They're porous, they're like sponges, and they're very easy to use. I've built homes using them, but if you don't waterproof the outside, not water resist, waterproof the exterior of the foundation, you're gonna get water intrusion here. So there's water, active, wet water intrusion coming through the foundation wall in certain areas, including below the main water. Hot water source, electric hot water tank, cold water coming in with a shutoff valve. That's electric. I like to look at the wiring, make sure it's grounded. There's the manufacturing plate. Maybe I can get a date, at least the size. Discharge from the TPR valve extended to the floor. Done. Electric system. Here's the electric main distribution panel, main shutoff switch at the top. I'm going to use my fingers to designate if it's 100 or 200. It has to be at least 100 or 150. And I want to make sure that the labeling is full. Can't tell if it's accurate. I'm not going to switch all the breakers and make sure everything's accurate, but I'm going to make sure that every breaker is specifically identified. And I don't have to take the cover off. You're not required to remove the dead front cover. But if you do, that's what it looks like. I do not recommend you do that. Don't exceed the standards of practice in this way if you're not trained to do so. You need gloves, you need to be standing in a safe area, you need clearance, safety goggles, not really concentrated on preventing high arc flashes, but there could be an arc, a spark. So I don't recommend it, but I always did. I did this. I exceeded the standards of practice for every client. And often when I did, I got to see defects that I wouldn't normally be able to see. And that's a double tap. And it's the basement circuit. So the house was originally built with an unfinished basement. They finished the basement. Someone put some wiring in and stuck a wire into a breaker, a 15 amp breaker. It's probably not supposed to be there. And there's no building permit either. And there's no electrical inspection sticker as well. I'm looking for overfusing, where you have a big breaker on a small wire. I'm looking for anything that's melted. I'm looking for water intrusion, looking for debris, looking for spray paint, anything cracked or damaged. I'm looking for grounding and bonding and connections. It all looks pretty good. There's a screw. A metal screw was used to attach the dead front cover, so we don't like that. That tip can cut into a wire and cause a lot of problems, so we don't want that. Not bad. There is a great picture that tells a lot about this house. Originally, the house didn't have a drainage system or sump pump. You can tell that because of the different colors of concrete in the floor. The sump pump was installed afterwards, and there's a drainage system that was installed in the perimeter of the basement afterwards. And there's a dehumidifier right next to the sump pump, and it's on and it's draining into the sump pump. So not only do I have a concern in the past about water intrusion, because they installed a perimeter drain, fence drainage system with a sump pump, but I actually have active water penetration, and there's water in the trench and in the sump pump itself. And I know that that system is not collecting all the water well because we have high humidity in the basement. So there could be water intrusion maybe behind finished walls that we can't see, and there's humidity, high humidity levels, and they have a dehumidifier actively running in the basement. It's a great picture. I love this stuff. If this is a home inspection and the sellers are going to move, they'll probably take that dehumidifier, right? If my client wasn't there or we didn't do a home inspection, my client may move in not realizing the water issues in the basement because the dehumidifier isn't there. So I want to make sure that that dehumidifier, even though it's not a permanent fixture, is part of my report, because I want them to understand that even though I'm not required to measure the humidity levels, that's an indication that we have water intrusion problems in the basement. If there's a sump pump with a manual float, I'll grab it and make sure it kicks on. And there's a check valve on the discharge pipe. And we saw the discharge pipe outside, right? And there's standing water in the sump pump too. I want to mention that. And this is wintertime, by the way. I forgot to mention, you may have seen the snow on the outside. So we have water penetration in the wintertime. And there's snow outside, so it wasn't a rainstorm. You're not required to lift any ceiling tiles and look above or move insulation. But when I see a watermark on a ceiling tile, that's where I have a lot of fun. And I move the ceiling tiles and I inspect why there's a watermark on the ceiling tile, and it was from this water leak in the past. So something from that 4-inch sewer pipe was leaking and dripping on the ceiling tiles of the basement. And I want my client to know that. And it's not wet now. I carry a moisture meter. Also an infrared. I used infrared on every inspection as well. I just included it. I used my infrared camera to see things. And I increased the value of my service, so therefore I increased my inspection fee. And I beat my client because using infrared and moisture meters helped distinguish myself from all of my competition that was left behind. So I wanted to ask my client to ask the seller about that prior sewage leak on the ceiling of the basement. If you get really detailed, like I did, I opened and closed every door. Not every window, but every door. and just to make sure that they open and close and lock and unlock. And the closet door wasn't all that great. So I'm moving insulation in the ceiling of the basement, in between joists, along the band and rim joists, and in between other areas. And I use a gardening tool. It's a 3-tine hoe, 3 tines to garden. One I bent straight, the other one was kind of bent, and the other one was really hooked. And with those 3 combinations, I could do just about everything, move things around and put things back. And it was extendable. I should have it with me. It was an extendable one, so it went from 2 feet to 4 feet, right? So I was able to collapse it and carry it, and then open it up and really reach just about everywhere I wanted to. Floor joists look great. Moving more ceiling tiles, and I finally get to the deck area, and there's the deck. So this is the floor joist near the deck on the outside, missing flashing, water intrusion. So it's just an indication that we have a major deck problem. And I want to take pictures of the finished basement because I can't see everything. I'm not moving furniture, not lifting carpet, not moving personal items. We have water intrusion here and there. There might be mold behind that area, but I want to make sure that my client knows that I can't see everything. And there are inspection restrictions, which are reasonable to report, like that. I would love to crawl underneath the stair landing, but I can't get there. Why? Because of that. All that stuff is in my way. And we also have a ton of fish tanks, a half a dozen fish tanks. I don't know what was going on. They're all empty, but another indication of a lot of humidity and moisture in the basement. And this is a tool they no longer make. So it's kind of like my gardening tool. It's an extendable moisture meter with 2 prongs at the tip, and it gave an audible readout. It used to beep if it sensed moisture. And there's a clean out for the sewer. Tested the receptacles. There's the basement bathroom, toilet, sink, GFCI. That's it. Now I'm in the attic. So now in my head, I'm scheduling the rest of my day, actually, when I get into the attic. That's how I think. Because I'm done with the major systems. What do we do? Roof, exterior, heating, cooling, hot water source, water coming in, water coming out, electrical, structure. And then I did a basement kind of thing where, looked around at the insulation and the water and the ceiling tiles and the bathroom downstairs. Now I'm in the attic, right? And I sometimes bring my clients up, often I don't. I don't want anybody falling through an attic ceiling. So if it's completely floored and looks safe to get up, maybe my client will come up with me. Otherwise, I don't want anybody walking. I actually had a gentleman walk on in between the joists because he didn't want to damage the joist. So he was walking on the plaster lath. So he almost fell through. And that was probably where I decided no one follows with me, So I'm in the attic. About an hour and a half in, I've got about another half hour of work left. The entire house, right? You'd think that's the biggest system. It actually isn't. Attic, it's pretty easy. Then the interior, representative number of windows, doors, receptacles, lights, smoke detectors, floors, ceilings, walls. The bathrooms, I collect all in one section in my inspection report. And then the kitchen. If there's an attached garage, I'll do that. There isn't one here, so it's even faster. So what I'm going through in the attic is structure, signs of indications of water intrusion that I observe, and insulation. Structure, insulation, water. And other things, anything like electrical, I'll comment on. But things like this, again, I can't see everything because of the inspection restrictions. And am I required to find, I have a question for you. Is a home inspector required to find every defect in a home? So if there are, let's say there are actually 10 defects in a home, is the home inspector required to find those 10 defects? Right. Correct. Shelley, no. Correct. You guys are awesome. So you're required really to report upon every defect that you observe and deem to be material. So if you can't see the defect that actually exists, there's a huge defect behind this logo here, right? But I can't see it. Like, this is just a banner, could be moved. I'm not required to move it, but there's a huge defect on the wall behind this banner. If I don't see it, it's not part of my scope, not part of my work scope. I'm only required to report upon the defects that I both see and deem to be so important that somebody should get it fixed, right? Deemed to be a material or major defect. So, yeah. So, if so, you should have. I don't know how to say it. You should have a good time being a home inspector, because that should shed a lot of burden off your shoulders, right? You're not required to find everything, every problem. Only the things you come across and observe that you think are really important, according to the standards of practice. Yep. Now you can have a lot of fun, right? Yeah, Douglas is correct. Latent defects, they are hidden from you. They could be found, they're often found when a contractor comes in and tears open a wall and says, hey, there's the defect, right? And when there's a misunderstanding with the contractor about what a home inspection is all about, that contractor might say something unfortunate like, well, your home inspector should have found that, right? And then we have to explain. And that's when your standards of practice comes in. It's really important to know the standards of practice and have it a foundation of your service. Perform your inspection process according to that standard. Write your inspection report as a reflection of what you did during the inspection, right? And then you follow up, it's like icing on the cake. Follow up with a home maintenance book that reflects the standards of practice. Every chapter in the home maintenance book, this is InterNACHI's, now that you've had a home inspection, home maintenance book, every chapter here is actually every section of the standards of practice. So the standards of practice are really important. You got to know them. I know how to follow them because I've memorized them, but they're also in your software. So if you don't know what to inspect next, you just go to your software, and your software should reflect the standards of practice. If you do all this, if you have all this continuity between the standards of practice, your training, your standards of practice, your software, your inspection process, your inspection report, your home maintenance book, you have continuity, and anything that pops up that is a defect, essentially, will like stand out so fast because you're using this system where everything is the same. The standards are the same, the inspection process is the same, your report writing, your software, and defects tend to just, I don't know how to explain it, they just tend to pop right out, right? Because you're doing the same process, and it's like tripping over a rock on a sidewalk. You know, everything's nice and smooth, but the rock is just so easy to pick out. And those rocks are defects. Yeah. So stick to the standards of practice and a inspection procedure that is consistent. So there's my attic. We have a knee wall. Knee walls are awesome. They need to be insulated well and also sealed so that ventilation doesn't come actually through the attic space, but stays where it should in the unconditioned spaces. Right? So ventilation is continuous and flowing, and it has no effect on the interior parts. So there's a finished part of the second floor that's going to an unfinished attic space. This is a cheap little attic access door. It's not insulated. It's not sealed. So it's leaking air. It's essentially having an open window in the middle of winter. Imagine the middle of winter in a cold climate, snowing outside, and you just open a huge window and just let it open 24 hours a day. Yep, that is the effect that one of these doors can have on a house. I inspect every window and door that I can reach. It's pretty easy. Unless it's a huge house, like 4,000 square foot house, then I'm doing representative number. And when I come across something that's wrong, a tip is to just cross my fingers, and that means something's wrong, like an X. So that lock is damaged. When there's a furnace and ductwork on an existing home, I love to open up the floor register, stick my hand in there, and grab some stuff. And I often find the original construction sawdust and nails that the folks just dumped into the ductwork. And the ductwork has never been cleaned. And then I tend to make that recommendation. I look for handrails. Handrails should be grippable. Imagine you're a grandmother trying to navigate these steps without holding on to anything. Impossible. Remember that window that I couldn't touch from the exterior? Well, I'm here now because I remembered where it was, and it's rotten. And there's wood rot in my hand. A lot of people say, well, now you've got to buy that window because you just put a piece of it in your hand. Nope. If I break something during a home inspection, guess what I do? I take a picture of it and put it in the report, because I'm expecting someone to congratulate me for finding that problem before they did. Ever squeeze that soft brass, chrome-plated sink trap in a bathroom sink? I love squeezing those. They just crush. Well, first thing I do is take a picture of it and put it in the report, right? It's a good thing I found that. Ever test a garage door and it falls apart, pops right off the rail? We've done that before too. It's a good thing I tested that garage door and it popped instead of having it fall on your head or on your Corvette, right? So if you break something during your typical home inspection process, don't freak out, right? That's kind of like your job. Your job is to find problems, things that are on the verge of breaking, things that are going to collapse. Sometimes they collapse right in front of you. Sometimes they break in your hand, right? And that's your job. Flush the toilets, run the sinks, the showers, looking at the tile, the floor, step in the especially the plastic fiberglass shower surrounds. Sometimes the floor wasn't foamed up or supported really well, and it cracks underneath your feet. Those are kind of fun. If it does that, then the drain is probably leaking. Underneath the sink, I love taking pictures underneath the sink. I want to see hot and cold water, shut-off valves, and a P-trap. GFCIs in every kitchen, in every bathroom. I want to see every bathroom exhausting outside. We only had one exhaust hood. Do you remember? It was the dryer exhaust hood outside. No other exhaust hoods. Well, how can you have 3.5 baths in a house and not have any of them exhausting outside? So back when this house was built, they were built to code. Nowadays, this is a problem, right? Every bath fan should be exhausting outside. Every kitchen should be exhausting outside. Every dryer should be exhausting outside. Interior fans, receptacles, there was some patching of the drywall there. Any smoke detector that's yellow in color should be replaced with a battery backup. Second floor laundry, wish I had one. If you do, the clothes washer should be resting in a pan, a catch pan, just in case it leaks. And they sometimes do, the gasket or whatever, especially on old. And then that's the electric. That was to code back then. Now it's 4-prong, remember? The dryer vent pipe is okay, but it's clogged or very dirty on the outside, so we want that cleaned. The pressure hoses, they should be pressure tested, braided mesh hoses. These are not, those are cheap ones. And there's the crack in the pan underneath the clothes washer. Second bathroom, same as the first. Bathroom take a couple minutes. There's a cat in the house. I want my client to know that. So I take a picture. I couldn't find the cat. So I took a picture of the litter box in the bathroom. So I want them to know that if they move into the house that I inspected and the house is empty, right, but it smells like cat urine, well, I've informed them that I've observed this indication of pet in the house. I have cats myself. I love dogs. I have dogs. But I want my client to know, it's nothing against pets, So I want my client to know that that was here. That was the condition of the home when I inspected it. And when they move in, they may have a reason to replace all the carpets. I'm just saying. Interior pictures, pretty easy. I love inspecting the ceiling beneath the second floor bathrooms. So you shine your flashlight. Inspector Outlet has these high lumen flashlights. I like Inspector Outlet. That's the only place I would recommend shopping. So if this was a ceiling, right, I put my flashlight up against the ceiling. Okay, this is a wall. You can do it for a wall too, but shine it like that. And you can adjust these and make sure that the, oh, not this one, huh? Oh, my other one, my pin one does. And make sure that, well, it's easier to see defects in the ceiling below a bathroom if you do that. And then if there was a leak or a patch, it just pops right out unless the plasterer was really good. So that's another tip. Let's see. Getting close to the end, right? You can feel it. I can just move through the house pretty fast. Another casement window with a detached mechanism, no big deal. This heating register, you can barely see it. It's underneath the floor. So I want to make sure that every room has some conditioned air with a furnace system. And I want to identify, like, the basement wasn't part of the original structure. So I want to make sure that this basement probably is going to be cooled or cool in the wintertime. And that is a restriction of that register as well. So there's interior surfaces. I love the bay windows, especially looking at a bay window. A bay window's a hole in the wall, right? So I inspect it like a door or any window. I tend to walk up on it and I go bottom left, bottom right, top left. So it's counterclockwise. Bottom left, I look at the bottom left corner of the door, or bottom left corner of the window, or bottom left corner of the bay window. Bottom right, top left. Just go around counterclockwise with everything that I inspect. Looking at the corners, really. And so here's a door. Bottom left, bottom right has wood rot. Stop. That's all I need to know. That's probably part of that water intrusion problem that I saw in the basement. And I thought it was the deck flashing. It could be the deck flashing and or the door itself. So we've got lots of problems. We have water intrusion through structural components, missing flashing, wood damage, water all the way into the basement through the door. The space between the spindles is too far apart, far enough for a child to fall through. Back then, this house was built to code, right? Well, it turns out just about every home, existing home that's 15 years old is deficient in many systems. There's not enough insulation. It's about 75% of the insulation that's required for a new home today. And the spindles are spaced too far apart. They're 5 inches or 6 inches, and now it's 4 or less. So if you're a home inspector and you're inspecting existing homes, you're going to have a lot of fun because there's probably defects that are built into the house simply because of when it was built and where it was built. So you'll always be in demand. So the door, is separated. Could have been some settlement, maybe some flashing is needed, some sealant is needed, or rubber weatherization. There's the fireplace. Remember, on the roof, identified the fireplace flue. So there's a fireplace there. You're required, according to the standards of practice, to open and close the flue damper. I take a look at the masonry. This is a masonry unit, so I'm looking at the brick, the mortar joints, I'm looking for any kind of cracks. There's a shield to reflect some of the heat back into the system, but if there's a shield and I can pull it back, I'm going to take a look back behind there. I don't want any holes in the masonry of the firebox. And the floor looks good, and there's the damper, and the doors, and the hearth, and the clearances. Looking good. I'm in the kitchen. This is easy. I turn on every appliance, shut them all off, even run a short cycle with the dishwasher. If it leaks, that's great. I didn't break anything. If it leaks, that's awesome. You found it. Put it in the report. Garbage disposal turns off and on. Receptacle, I don't like the trap. It's kind of like a, what do they call it? An incline P trap. So I don't want that. and GFCIs, that one doesn't work. So this one works, but that one doesn't because I have my fingers crossed. Run the dishwasher, interior, I open and close the drawers, and that's about it. And then I run a short cycle. The stove, oven element didn't turn on. And that's it. That's my home inspection for that house. Do we have any questions? Gregory asks, do you prefer a checklist or narrative report? Narrative, but it doesn't matter to me, right? It really matters to your client. So nowadays, your clients expect to read sentences in paragraph form with no spelling errors, good grammar, and pictures. They don't quite yet expect to see video. I think that's going to be the new trend. So what you can do is, if you're trying to decide whether you should do this or that in your service, you can always ask. Why don't you ask a couple past clients, do a little survey, follow up with them. What I did was, a lot of my business came from real estate agents. So I wanted about 30 real estate agents for every home inspector in my business with good relationships, because that kind of filled up their calendar. Half of them closed every month on a house. So that was good business. But I asked the real estate agent, why don't you just ask them, like, what do you expect from a really good home inspection? What do you need a home inspector to do during a home inspection day, right? So you just ask them. And whatever they say, provide it, right? So now you don't have to guess, right? So early on, my real estate agents would love a summary sheet printed out immediately. They don't need the entire report. In fact, I don't think a whole lot of people read the entire report. And we can talk about why you create a report later. It's one of the greatest marketing tools you have. But everybody wants a summary. Now, real estate agent wants to grab that summary sheet right after the inspection, which my software can do, all software can do, and print it out, right? And start marking the things that they have to either negotiate on or fix themselves or something, right? Or ask the seller to do. They want that. It doesn't matter what I want. What does my client want, or my client's agent want? And just ask them, and then provide that for them, right? So you don't have to guess. You're really targeting your client. So here's a URL. I apologize, it's really long. But if you wanted to download some home inspection report samples, there's a couple from me and a couple from a few other home inspectors, InterNACHI inspectors. It's at that URL, and it's very long. nachi.org/home-inspection-report-samples. I'll try to find out a shorter URL. But if you go there, you can download some sample reports, and there are other resources there as well. How do you reconcile with your client when the state SOP, standards of practice, is not perfectly aligned with InterNACHI's SOP? Right, so local overrules. So you follow your local regulations. InterNACHI is international, right? But if you're local, for example, your AHJ, your authority having jurisdiction, your township code inspector, that person, he or she, can just say anything they want, and that's the way it's going to be. You need smoke detectors in every room here, that's the way it's going to be. You interpret the code any way you want, AHJ, right? So local overrules any other national or international codes. That's how I would explain it. Basement, summer, a drain system below. What do you have to know? So Eric asks about a particular type of sump pump system. In a home in Colorado, had a basement, not a sump pump, but another drainage system below the basement floor. Would you happen to know what kind of drainage system that might be? Below the basement floor, how did you see it? I mean, where were you seeing that you knew there was a drainage system under the basement floor, like a concrete floor? So you probably just have to email me, and maybe if you got some extra pictures. But building practices and building code now requires a layer of stone and a drainage pipe. right? Even commercial buildings. And we use that drainage pipe to collect into a hole, a sump pump. It doesn't have to be a pump in there, but it's a sump, a bucket. And we put both ends in there. So it's one big snaked drainage pipe, and it goes into the sump bucket. If there's water coming in, no big deal. We just pump it out. So maybe that's what you saw, or some kind of proprietary system. Not sure. So Mo asks, can we download the example pictures to your iPad? Can we download the example? You can. I think you're asking. I'm gonna provide these slides and these pictures as a download, as a PDF, on NACHI TV, NACHI.tv, along with this video. We're recording this webinar right now, so you'll watch the video. You can also download the slides that I'm using, and you can download them hopefully on your iPad. I think it'll work. Would you consider soffit vents blocked by insulation as defect? No, not necessarily, so careful. But in this climate zone and with this type of attic and roof system, you need soffit vents. So if they're not there, you really don't block any. So, but if you do have soffit vents installed, then you need to keep that pathway, air pathway, movement of air, open. So it all depends, right? It isn't just, well, if you see insulation in a soffit, that's a problem. Are there soffit vents installed? If there are, then you need to move that insulation away. And also, like, there are things like, you know, you blow in insulation, and for some attic spaces, you have different ways to ventilate that attic space. And you don't necessarily need soffits. Traditionally, conventionally, the best type of ventilation for a sloped asphalt shingle roof is where you have the soffits open and the ridge vent open. If you damage something in a home, which was mostly due to a defect, how have you handled it in the past? Like when you were tapping on a shower towel and you bust right through. That's fun. I love that. Has the seller asked you to replace? Oh, the seller always asks somebody to fix this because they don't want to do it, right? I love pounding on tiles that have silicone around the tiles, right? Because I know silicone was used to stop water penetration. So I push on the tiles. I actually grab the soap dish and the handle. If it's a handle, I'm pulling on it because just think of someone relying on that handle attached to the tiles. So it really should hold 200 pounds in any direction. So you can grab that thing. It's kind of like a guardrail on a deck. 200 pounds in any direction. It really should hold you. So yeah, I pound it, and then I actually take pictures of me pounding it. And if my hand goes through, that's great. Water has been going through those tiles and those grout lines for months, if not longer. I just happen to show you the damage that it's doing. It's how I explain it. I hardly ever, I paid for wine in a refrigerator once because I tested a GFCI and I didn't realize that I didn't reset it. So I thought I reset it, but I didn't. And the wine went bad, so I paid for wine. So that wasn't really a defect in the home that I discovered. It's a problem that I made. And it was pretty clear. Yeah, a lot of people are asking, Megan, about, you know, putting things that you found wrong, that you damaged in the report. I do. I don't hold anything back. There's no need to. It's not really your fault to, if your screwdriver goes through wood rot, that's not your fault. In fact, that's one of the greatest pictures, when you put your screwdriver into something that you really shouldn't be able to put it into, and then take a picture of it. I don't know. Let's see. GFCI. What does an open ground mean? Well, there's two. You can have GFCIs installed on wiring without any grounds, and an open ground means there's a wall receptacle with 3 prongs, and the grounding wire isn't connected. So that's what an open ground is. So they're actually not related that much. Is a catch pan required on every washing machine? I can look at the code. But often I I didn't refer directly to code. I don't mention code, but it's just a darn good idea, isn't it? So I can, maybe it was code and I had it in my head and I just turned it into a narrative in my inspection reports. So it's always, if it's a good idea, I just put it in my report. That's the beauty of being a home inspector. You're not a code inspector, right? So it's really, they're paying you for your opinion. And so I put my opinions in writing, and many people disagree with me. That's okay. Would you comment on the presence of a cat? Yeah. How might you present that in the photo? I took pictures of the cat or the litter box. And what would you say that there's a cat in the litter box? I often commented on smells that were unusual, and I would mention that as well. Dimension, any repairs in the drywall that were made from doors or doorknobs or random holes? Yes, if they were large enough to catch my eye, but usually no. And that just comes with buying a home. If it's a new home, yeah, usually I'm walking with the builder, and we're being really particular, and you buy these little like Post-it notes, but they're circles. And you put little circles all over the walls for blemishes. So that's how detailed you are, and it takes forever. It's like all day on a brand new home, you know, and you're walking with the builder and the buyer. That's a pain in the butt. I hate those. I want to do a home inspection and make my fee for the home inspection and also my ancillary services. So if you're doing only a home inspection, you may want to consider getting more certifications from InterNACHI, online and free, and adding them to your services. Like do a package. Like we would do a home inspection for $396, but I thought that was kind of like a failure in my time. I wanted to make about $560. So I added a package together. I put a package together with home inspection, a radon test, and a wood destroying organism inspection. And then out of that home inspection, I would make $600. And I would come home back to the office making $1,000, over $1,000 every day. That was our goal, right? So I wanted to go to a home and make sure that I was doing more than just a home inspection. I was doing an ancillary inspection. So I got certified and trained to do those. I offered those to my client. And if I was at a home inspection, I was just doing a home inspection, I would always turn around and say, while I'm here, would you like me to do a radon test? Or would you like me to do a water quality test? Or I see indications of mold. Would you like me to do a mold sample? So I'm trying to beef up my package of services. So that's something to keep in mind. The actual written report, I'll try to find it and put it up on the NACHI TV along with the slides. Does the outlet underneath the sink need to be GFCI? Yep. So that's a new code, 2015. I think they required receptacles underneath the sink to be GFCI protected. This home was built back then, and I actually did the home inspection about many years ago. Did you do a gutter inspection at the time of the roof? I always do. I just eyeball it and make sure that there isn't any debris in the gutter. Federal overrules that, right? Federal overrules that. I'm not sure what you're asking, Douglas. That may have been in reference to some other slide, but it's actually state. So local overrules Fed, right? So if your state regulates home inspectors, it doesn't matter what InterNACHI says. It's the state of Texas, for example, regulates home inspectors, and they have to follow a standards. New York has a standards of practice just for home inspectors, a code of ethics just for home inspectors, and they're slightly different than InterNACHI's. So state overrules national. So follow your local things. All right, so I think I'm going over the other questions. I see a lot of them, and that's exciting. So I'm going to copy paste all these questions. I'm going to stick them in an email and send out an email with all the answers. If I can't do that, right, I've done it before, but not successfully, please email me your question again, okay? So we're going to wrap up here. And again, I want to show you that URL. NACHI TV. It's that top URL, nachi.tv. Give me a couple days to put the video up with the report and the slides and other resources. So by the end of the week, we'll have that available to you. And if you are watching this video on YouTube, you missed a good class, interactive class. You can register for the next one at nachi.tv. And if you're interested in becoming a home inspector, email me and I'll show you how to do it. And it's a lot of fun. So I'm Ben Gromicko from InterNACHI. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming to class. See ya.